You've hit play on the Screen Companion, a show about making your viewing time count. Here we are, talking about long frickin' movies. Today we're doing A Bridge Too Far from 1977, as well as The English Patient from 1996. John, what is A Bridge Too Far about?
It's about Operation Market Garden, where the Allied forces in late 1944 decide that they can have the war over by Christmas. But I feel like Civil War was supposed to be over by Christmas, World War I was supposed to be over by Christmas, World War II was supposed to be over by Christmas. I know there's a million other wars that can't use Christmas because they didn't have Christianity.
People love Christmas time, probably going back to the Crusades.
Oh, man.
This will be over by Christmas.
What's that? Don't worry about it. Anyway, it's about the Allied forces trying to take a bridge that may or may not be too far away.
Multiple bridges.
They have to take 4 bridges in total. It is about the various factions of the Allied forces, from Americans, what nationality Gene Hackman was.
Poles.
Polish people. Yeah, they had a big stake in that war. There were Canadians.
It has such a huge cast of characters.
Massive cast, yeah.
Now, this is our position on the Belgian border here. Tomorrow, 3 airborne divisions will begin landing in Holland. 35,000 men taking off from 24 airfields in troop-carrying planes or towed in gliders. The American 101st, here, around Eindhoven. The American 82nd, here, south of Nijmegen, and our own 1st Airborne Boys and a Polish brigade here at Arnhem. 64 miles behind enemy lines. Now, their job is to take and hold all the bridges in these 3 areas. Our job is to punch a hole through the German front line here and then drive like hell up this road, linking up with each airborne division on the way up. Speed is the vital factor. The plan is to reach Eindhoven in 2 to 3 hours and Arnhem in 2 to 3 days. That, gentlemen, is the prize. The bridge over the Rhine. The last bridge between us and Germany.
This movie being nearly 3 hours long, I think it's 2 hours 59 minutes. How do you think that extensive runtime is a benefit to the narrative?
The cast of characters we just talked about. Everyone gets their time. You get to see what's going on with them and get a feel for who they are. And no one really gets glossed over.
List for me the various subplots going on and who's heading each one.
General Sean Connery was part of a paratrooper division. I'm going to call them all generals. General Gene Hackman was infiltrating somewhere, also was a paratrooper, right? He went in last. He was angry they couldn't go because of weather.
Yeah.
They knew the weather's pretty consistently bad where they were taking off from, and the whole operation depended on that being good. Let's see. General,
Usually I advocate for us using the character names. However, for this particular movie, because they absolutely went for an all-star studded cast, I'm more than fine using their real names. So you also have General Ryan O'Neill, who hurts his back in landing.
Oh, yeah.
And they kind of gloss over that, don't they? I feel like they mention it in that one scene and then it doesn't come up again.
They mention it, but it's not a problem. They're just like, oh, he's hurt, and then they just move on. Let's see. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Caine was basically just on a parade.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. Yeah, he was just doing a meet and greet tour, liberating all these towns in the Netherlands.
Well, I think in the movie, it's this idea that the locals think the Allied forces are there and they've won it, and so they're celebrating a bit too early. Did you recognize the night porter?
Yes? I don't know if I knew his name.
Dirk Bogarde.
Oh,
What is he, General Browning at the beginning of the movie, going over the plans?
yes, yeah.
When I saw him in this, after having seen The Night Porter, I was mixing the movies up going, ooh, I wonder if this general's a pervert in his personal life.
He absolutely is. What else we got? Anthony Hopkins. He's the one who captured the final bridge and could not keep it. He didn't get to say the brilliant line, but it did lead to the brilliant line of when the Nazis came to talk about surrender, and he's like, we can't accommodate all of you.
I wasn't quite sure about that. It seemed like a genuine offer that the Germans there were making to them. I wish they had gone into more of the state of the Germans and why that particular commander was thinking about surrendering.
The impression I got is they clearly had defeated the British forces at the bridge, and they came to discuss their surrender. The joke of, we can't accommodate all you, was him saying, no, we do not surrender.
That the British don't surrender.
Yeah, the British don't surrender. Because they were clearly outgunned at that point. The Panzer Tank Division had showed up, I think, at that point, and it was over.
I wasn't quite paying attention as much as I do in a lot of other films. So that went over my head. I took it face value.
Ah.
The Germans were there to discuss the British surrender at the bridge. And the Brits were making fun of the circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah.
Germans have no humor, and thus did not get it.
Well, neither do I, because I didn't find the humor.
Oh.
But with such a big cast, would you consider anyone to be the main character, or maybe 2 or 3 main characters?
Maybe Sean Connery, because he was there in the beginning and he was there in the end. But, like, the movie didn't stop introducing new characters. James Caan showed up. Robert Redford showed up at one point. Elliot Gould.
By the time Redford showed up, I was like, why is he in this movie?
By the time he showed up, what we considered a long movie would also be over.
As a war movie, how do you think it's better or worse than others of the subgenre?
I like the true story aspect of it. I don't know how many other movies would stick to the whole Allies losing part.
It does come off as one giant cluster F.
Yeah, it's a giant, there's gotta be a funnier way to say cluster F. But that works too.
Cluster fun?
Yeah, cluster fun. It's all cocked up, as the British would say.
Over 80 episodes of The Screen Companion. Listen to the show on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and more. Drop us a line via thescreencompanion@gmail.com or join the Facebook group. Tell us your favorite guests and what topics we should cover next. Further support the host by going on Amazon.com and picking up his 2 sci-fi novels, Self, Recognition, and Traversal, The Weight of Worlds, available in digital and print editions. And I found myself feeling sorry for the commanders at the beginning, the lower commanders that could poke all the holes in the plan. But then, toward the end of the first act, I realized, not that I'm some great scholar or anything, okay, so you can find 20 things wrong with a battle plan, things like the weather, where troops can be deployed. No plan can ever have 100% what the people enacting want out of it, right? You can't wait for favorable conditions, because then you'll never do anything.
What even is a perfect war plan? The perfect war plan, I guess, is not to go to war. That sounds like a hippie. But thinking about the 300 Spartans, they're supposed to be the greatest fighting machine ever. They all died enacting their perfect plan.
Talking about the subgenre, this is so focused on the broad strokes of Operation Market Garden that I'd say it's as pure a war movie as you can get without becoming a documentary.
I'll kind of agree with that. There's some definite propagandaism to it, sensationalism. Every American subplot succeeded. Elliot Gould was supposed to build a bridge, and he did. Robert Redford was supposed to infiltrate the other side of a river, and he did. James Caan was trying to save that guy who everyone kept telling him was already dead, and he did. Whereas Sean Connery had to be rescued. Anthony Hopkins had to be rescued.
Aren't they restricted by the broader historical things that happened?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know if the movie presents it in that fashion as much as it presents it as the Americans are getting their jobs done, and the British are failures.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't really consider that. You're right. I don't know, except for James Caan's subplot, how much of the rest of that are real victories for Americans.
Yeah, his is more personal.
What in the name of hell do you...
Tell me to put him down, sir.
Look, Sergeant, I'm in no mood for crapping around.
Colonel, if you don't look at him right now, he's going to die.
Dead now.
It'd mean a lot to me, sir, if you check him out.
Come on, Sergeant, for Christ's sake, get him out of here.
If you look at him, please, sir. Right now. I'll blow your fucking head off. Right now.
I can give him a quick examination if you like.
Thank you very much, sir.
The British, it was General Montgomery. It was his plan, right?
Yeah.
I could see how the larger military actions would fall mostly under their purview because it was their plan. And since the operation wasn't quite a success, that it would reflect more on them than it would the Americans that were involved. But as it is, it reminds me of museum narrators outlining troop movements at historical battle sites. As you press the buttons on those interactive maps.
Some painting of people fighting near a bridge or something.
And little spots light up on the map. On the third day, General Wacky made his gallant charge up Hot Dog Hill, while in the south, the 10th Corps marched in to provide a terribly needed potty break. In subgenre terms, it's a quintessential film.
I don't know, I feel like you're going to get sued for that statement, being from a real museum.
Not to go far off topic, but I couldn't help think that Sean Connery looked healthy. Do you think his bald Bond could have worked if he stayed on longer into the 70s?
No. Well, maybe. Personally, I want to say no, but I mean, who knows? Ian Fleming was probably like, he's got to have the wig, damn it!
Because Ian Fleming believes James Bond has to be a sex machine.
Huh.
And sex machines have to have hair.
Whatever comes into your Caribbean-baked mind while you're drinking and writing spy novels.
But doesn't Connery look better in this? Doesn't it look like he could take on the guy in Diamonds Are Forever?
Yeah, I think he could. When he fist fights the man in the elevator and beats him to death? Or are you just talking about that Sean Connery, that James Bond?
That James Bond.
Yeah, I think he could. Because he's more worried about murdering Germans than he is his hair, whereas Bond is definitely more worried about his hair.
I feel like Connery's charisma lasted well into the 80s, early 90s.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe it peaked with The Rock.
I'll agree with that. Because I remember growing up, as a child, he wasn't my Bond. He wasn't the James Bond or even my brothers. But Mom knew him as James Bond, but I'd seen him in all the other movies. I never knew him as James Bond. I knew him as Sean Connery, the movie star.
And it's hard to see these guys in the cast as anything but movie stars whom the producers approached and said, "Hey, Sean boy, you want to put on an outfit and play Army with us for a while?" Because it's not like he looked at that script and said, "Oh, there's a lot of character to the script.
It's time to shine."
What do you think of the way it portrays the soldiers from different Allied countries?
I liked that they're all allowed to have interactions and be themselves. Like that scene between Michael Caine and Elliot Gould talking about how American and British do it differently, even though they're arguing during a parade.
It all came off as so stereotypical. They show the Brits drinking tea. They're all stiff bastards. The Americans fly off the rails. They're the mavericks. It's like, okay, fine.
The tea was funny, because the British were always drinking tea. There was even that one scene where everything had gone tits up, so to speak. Someone offered Sean Connery tea, and he's just like, my men are dead. I can't reach communications. This is wrong. Tell me, how can tea help right now? And the other guy's just like, can't hurt.
Were there any lulls in your viewing? Any subplots or stretches you'd cut out of this?
Not for me personally. It sounds like you have some good opinions on this subject. Maybe James Caan's subplot, but like that's the foot soldier aspect of this is how each individual is dealing with the war. Like you said, most of the film is broader strokes. So I don't know if I would cut anything out, but I feel like there is stuff that could be cut out.
To give a taste of what my ultimate opinion is on the film, I was bored through 99% of it, so I'd love to take a hatchet to this in the editing room.
Oh, wow. I guess I'm more of a middle-aged white man at this point than you are.
Maybe more middle-aged, although I'll fight you for the white title.
You are from New England, so...
Did you take a break during this movie, or did you sit through the whole thing in one viewing?
I raw-dogged this movie. I sat through the whole thing in one viewing.
Did your wife ever come in and out and sit with you?
She definitely did not do the whole movie.
She sat for 5 minutes, rolled her eyes, was like, okay, I'm gonna go make some food, see ya.
She'd come in, if she recognized someone, she'd leave. She came in, she didn't recognize Anthony Hopkins. She's like, who's that weirdo? I was just like, that's Hannibal Lecter. She's like, holy crap, and then leave the room.
Oh my god, I so want to see a World War II movie that involves movie monsters and serial killers and have a detachment of Norman Bates with Hannibal Lecter and some other weirdos.
All the people based on Ed Gaines. So you'd be like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome. It would be more real-life Suicide Squad. Throw in Michael Myers.
Not movie Michael Myers that keeps getting shot. Like the first one, it was supposed to be just a normal dude.
And then we could be semi-conflicted that these mass murderers are killing a bunch of people. But, you know, some of them are the enemy, so it's kind of okay. They have a license to kill.
They have a license. They have a need.
One soldier tries to give Michael Myers a rifle, and Myers just pulls out a butcher knife for some reason. And he shakes his head, no, I got this.
It's okay if it's Nazis.
It was easier to take breaks because I watched this on glorious Laserdisc. So every 50 minutes there was a forced pause to change the sides of the discs. The one extended break I took was when the old lady, whose house was seized by Anthony Hopkins soldiers, in their mission to thwart attacks coming from the other side of the bridge into town, she can't stand the commotion anymore and tries to leave the house, and then she gets shot up. That felt like a good spot to drop it and pick it up the next day. Who shot her? Was it the Germans or the Brits? I don't get what purpose that moment served except to say war sucks, huh?
War does suck, and it was definitely the Germans.
But was it explicitly the Germans?
Look.
Or are you assuming it was the Germans? Because it could have been the Brits, tired of her complaining at them all day long. Oh, you are all making so much noise. Shut up, old lady. We're trying to save the world here.
Do you not understand the concept of Nazis? Rat-a-tat-tat.
What do you think of war movies that are rated anything less than R? This being PG.
I love war movies. I was raised by a white man. So that was like the number one thing we could bond over. They're fun, but they are a bit propaganda-y, aren't they?
This felt so watered down and romantic in how little blood and guts we see. I ultimately came down on the side of the artists. I think the line for me is, portray it any way you want to, but I hope if somebody interviews the filmmakers, like when this was premiering, that the director or the writer, nobody said, oh, this is such an authentic portrayal of that operation. Just don't try to pass it off as being real, because it's Hollywood fantasy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's that classic 70s, 60s thing where you hear the audio cue of machine gun fire, and then you see a dude do a little dance, and then he falls down, and it looks like they're playing tag in the streets. Like, what just happened there? Did he sprain his ankle? Because if that was real life, he'd be riddled with holes, blood everywhere, but instead they do a little jig and fall down.
Obscenities.
The Saving Private Ryan equivalent of that is going to look different.
And that's just a censorship issue, because they're going after the money.
What was your favorite scene or performance?
There's a lot. My number one favorite is Elliot Gould, just because when you first meet him, he's running full sprint with a cigar in his mouth and his gun up. You don't even know what's going on with him at that point. Immediately just starts yelling everyone to do their job. The whole scene of him putting that bridge together, and again, cigar in mouth, gun up, yelling at everybody. I don't even know if he had a character arc. I don't think he did. Just screaming with cigar in mouth, like, we gotta put this bridge together, let's go! Ran into the parade, yelled at Michael Caine, ran out of the parade.
Oh my god, yeah, that bridge building sequence. That was, at least a minute long, if not longer?
Yeah.
I feel like they were teaching me how to rebuild a bridge.
You need to know.
No, I don't, damn it.
When World War III breaks out, and it's literally just over bridges.
It's like, you can't give me more James Caan instead of rebuilding a stupid bridge. Heck, I'd rather watch Elliot Gould smoke another cigar, just a close-up shot of him mugging at the camera, instead of watching that damn bridge. It pains me to hear you say you would consider cutting Caan out of the movie. Even though I agree with you, it doesn't jive with the rest of the movie. It does nothing. His story is such a tiny little personal piece of it. It doesn't need to be there, but to me, it's the closest we get to, like, Steve McQueen in The Great Escape. It's like the one pure action moment and character development, character drama that I could get into, because Caan's subplot, he's in the movie for all of 10 minutes, but they set up a relationship with that fellow soldier you mentioned, and it gets resolved once the operation is underway, and the comrade is nearly killed, and Caan goes out to retrieve his buddy, and early on, before the operation begins, the friend says, "Promise me I'm not going to die." I was thinking, well, he's going to die.
Right off the bat, it's a war movie. You don't talk about retirement, and you don't ask to not die.
It's like he must be wearing a red shirt under that uniform.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Caan gets some drama. The action as he's driving a Jeep with his half-dead friend through the woods, being boxed in by enemy forces. That's enough for a great short film. You could condense the movie into just Caan's bits, and that's all I needed to see. That being said, what's your biggest criticism for A Bridge Too Far?
Yeah, like I said, it's too sensationalized. Some bad stuff does happen along the way, but everybody gets a happy ending at some point. All the wounded British soldiers get to be rescued by German medics, which is weird to say, but that's what happened.
Well, and then they were taken prisoner.
Yeah, they're taken prisoner, but their lives were still saved, and the war was over within a year. Even if they wanted it to be over by Christmas, it was going to be over the following year.
Depending on where they got sent, though, John, a final year in a German POW camp might not have been that great.
That's true.
Especially if you're Jewish.
I don't think there was a single Jewish soldier in this movie. They didn't even bring that up.
In real life, isn't Elliot Gould Jewish?
Yes, in real life, but the character he played, I don't know if he's Jewish.
Oh, come on. Like we were talking about, the characters these guys are playing are the actors.
That's true, because, yeah, there wasn't a lot of time to do the background stuff. Like, all right, just go be yourself.
Yeah, we need an American pretty boy. Who do we cast? Ryan O'Neal. Okay, done. Do you have another criticism?
The lack of character development, even though they're all there and great, it's like you said, they're the characters. The actors are the characters. It's not the other way around. We mentioned earlier, normally we want to do character names, but we're doing actor names. That's exactly it. We don't know the character names. A lot of times they're not said.
I don't know. I think the main ensemble, their names get mentioned a lot. Okay, so I know General Browning, but I really have no concept of his character beyond he's pushing a plan that his superior pushed to him. So I can't really say he's necessarily a company man because, well, he's a soldier, so that's his job to do what people above him tell him to do. He can't turn around and say, no, General Montgomery, actually, I don't like your plan. I'm not going to pass it along.
I'm going to come up with a new one on the fly, but make sure you have all those million-strong troops ready to roll for me instead in the exact same amount of time.
I thought the same reason it's a true war film is also the explanation for why I didn't like it. And I don't mean true as in portraying it truthfully for the subgenre, how pure it is, because it's all about Operation Market Garden. If you look at any of the fine details, you're not really looking at anything, like one of those paintings with all the dots. You have to stand back 20, 30 feet in order to see the rest of it.
Pointillism.
John, I know what it's called, but for the audience, man, for people that don't know, for my dad that's listening.
I just named it witty repartee to inform people what particular types of art are.
Our degrees at work, huh?
Finally.
I actually thought this movie was really good when I was a kid, in a time I played with Green Army men. Because that's what this film is. The great hand of cinema moving pieces on the board. Explosions, gunfire, troop logistics. It'll make war history buffs cream their shorts, but I need characters in my movies. Pew pew boom isn't enough for me.
Such a nerd.
And there was a lot of pew pew and boom. There are like whole scenes just devoted to explosions.
Some of the scenes, if we could cut out some explosions. Michael Caine's whole subplot at the beginning of his tank march was a battle that went on maybe 3 or 4 minutes too long.
An intellectual viewer wanting to see battle recreations is going to love this far more than anyone expecting character drama outside of what's inherent to the situation that the men find themselves in. I like history, and I recently read a book about Germany in the final year of the war, so I get into some of that historical stuff, foreign stuff. War movies, not so much. Are you big into war movies?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm a middle-aged white guy now.
So what's your favorite war movie?
Was thinking about saying this one, but I don't know if I want to say it now.
Go for it. You can say Pearl Harbor.
Why would I say Pearl Harbor? I think my favorite war movie is definitely Captain America: Civil War. No. I'm not feeling that one.
I'll put in the laugh track for you.
Oh, thank you.
Answer the damn question.
Dadgummit. I'm gonna go with Full Metal Jacket, which is another anti-war film.
Before we get into our second film, I'd like to get into this idea of long movies. Do you have a particular affinity for them, or do you shy away from them?
I generally shy away. Especially now as an older man, just gotta go to the bathroom more often. There's just a lot to do in the day, so it's gotta be a good movie. It's gotta be something that's gonna keep me there. That was Infinity War and the last two massive Marvel movies were like 3 hours each. And I was only there because I invested, 20 movies prior. But if I see a 3-hour runtime, it's just like, I don't want to go to the theater. I could be walking the dog or playing video games or doing anything else.
I'm right there with you. If the story has enough material, good material, that it should be longer than, let's say, 2.5 hours tops, in that case, just make it a mini-series. But if I'm going to go to a theater, I don't want to sit there for 3 hours. Do you think there are genres that lend themselves more toward longer runtimes?
For some reason, anything historical automatically has to be 3 hours. Anything about Queen Elizabeth or the Civil War, those movies have always got to be long. World War II, those are always long movies. Yeah, historical dramas, you got to tell that part. Oppenheimer, hell, that was 3.5 hours, that still felt rushed.
That reminds me, it's been a while since I've seen it. I would guess that Gettysburg, the film, has a better balance of characters and the events of the battle. Picturing it right now, I'm thinking of Martin Sheen as Robert E. Lee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of Jeff Daniels as Chamberlain. I feel like in that movie, we would be calling them their character names. Whereas A Bridge Too Far, a week from now, I'm going to have a hard time remember anything about what the characters are doing except for the actors.
That's exactly it. Gettysburg is what, 5 hours, something like that?
It's a long one. But moving on to our second film, The English Patient, wherein Count Almashey is part of an archaeological society in the 30s, mapping parts of the Saharan Desert. He falls in love with a fellow member, the married Catherine Clifton. Things eventually go awry, and the film opens in 1944 Italy, as Almashey is cared for by a nurse named Hannah, his face a burned mess and everyone unable to identify him, simply calling him the English Patient. John, what stands out about the romance in this movie?
Romances in general always feel like there's an element of unnaturalness to it.
Absolutely, it's contrived as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a great example of, if you're going to go big, do it in service of the drama to make it interesting as opposed to just making it artificial because you can't think of anything better to do.
True, it definitely weaved in way better than most movies. I'd say it's definitely a love story disguised as a World War II flick.
Definitely. And I noticed how passionate Ralph Fiennes and Kristen Scott Thomas are in the movie. There's one point where Almashey is having Catherine, I think he's having her taste herself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example of, if you're not part of the romance, it's almost like PDA. To watch any part of it and you're not involved, it's gross. I want to be him with her, but since I'm not and I'm watching it, I'm like, put that behind a curtain. I don't really want to know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I don't need to see that. I'm going to write this down as potential. Cut it out for length.
This being over 2.5 hours, but under 3 hours, how do you think that runtime benefits this particular story?
It allowed you to really appreciate both the storylines. This is almost two different movies. It's not just Almashey retelling his tale to Hannah, but she's got her own stuff going on in the present.
Yeah, and I know this was based on a book. I haven't read the book. I don't know how faithfully it adapts it. But it feels like it's chewing a big piece that if this was an original property, they would have tightened it up. But because it's trying to adapt a book, they're like, let's try to do as much of the book as we can. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's how it felt based on those two different storylines happening.
Books. This is the screen companion, sir, not the book companion.
Oh, I want to do that show, but people don't read anymore.
Nah, reading's hard.
What do you think of the flashback narrative device? What was more interesting for you, the past or the present scenes in Italy?
I'd say it was tied, honestly, because, okay, this is getting too long, and cut back to the present, and then when the present scenes were getting too long, they'd go right back into the past segments. They started to weave together that mystery of the potential spy, which ended up tying both of them together, and I thought it worked really well, so I think they're both equally intriguing.
Well, kind of like A Bridge Too Far, this is where you and I diverge, sir. And this was one storyline too far. I've liked Juliette Binoche in a lot of stuff. I recommend The Lovers on the Bridge for anyone wanting a French film with her as one of the co-leads. But in The English Patient, I found the current day parts in Italy whimsical nonsense. Like it only existed so that the movie could open with this mystery of, why does Ray Fiennes look like Darkman? She breaks off from the main group so that she can take care of Almashi in an Italian villa. She goes and looks at paintings on a wall with Naveen Andrews' character, the Indian bomb diffuser. There are too many details like that where it doesn't feel very real to me, and that's why I say it feels like a foreign romance movie.
Kinda is, right?
Well, that storyline, yeah, and that stands in sharp contrast to the heart-wrenching aspects of Almashi's affair with Catherine. They feel diametrically opposed. For this movie, did you take any breaks? Did you pause anywhere?
No, but I wanted to in this one.
I don't know if I wanted to pause, but part of that might have to do with the fact that I decided for The English Patient I was going to watch it using my projector. I projected it, and I had to move some stuff around in my room to do it. I don't have it out all the time. So I had this beautiful, big projection screen image with some great sound quality, and I think that has replaced me going to an actual movie theater.
That's good.
So the actual way I was watching it, the vibe of it, carried me through some parts of The English Patient, and that's why I never stopped. So I cheated.
Cheater.
What's your favorite scene or performance?
You gotta say Willem Dafoe is Caravaggio, right?
I knew you were going to do that.
Willem Dafoe is the greatest, isn't he?
This nurse, Mary, tells me about you and Hannah hiding in some monastery in, what you call it? Retreat?
How you came out of the desert and you were burned and you didn't remember your name, but you knew the words to every song that ever was, and you had one possession, a copy of Herodotus, and it was filled with letters and cuttings.
Then I know it was you.
Me? I saw you writing in that book at the embassy in Cairo.
When I had thumbs and you had a face.
Every episode you're on and Willem Dafoe is in the movie,
It's Willem Dafoe!
you lick that dude's butt crack up and down.
Only metaphorically. Literally speaking, that's gross.
What if he washes first?
Nope, no buttholes. We don't need to get into my gross triggers on this show.
I didn't say the hole, I said the crack, sir.
Maybe I'll bite a washed butt cheek, but that's it.
I'm sure he has a very gentlemanly, charismatic butt crack.
I'm sure he would rather we not find out.
I want to make this gross enough that you never bring him up again unless we're watching something where he is a major player.
I don't know.
But fine, why do you like Willem Dafoe so much?
He brought the intrigue. His character brought the intrigue to the movie, Caravaggio. He's always going to be Green Goblin to me because I love Spider-Man. But just the way he presents characters, he's willing to go dark or silly depending on the situation. This, he went appropriately dark. He was threatening the English Patient because we don't know at that point. We're not supposed to know which one he was, despite it clearly being Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, with putty face.
Yeah.
I wasn't too into his makeup effects.
We'll talk about that later.
I think Caravaggio, he's got a great range of you feel bad for him at times. He does some flirting with Hannah, and he is some kind of spy, or was at one point, so there's some danger to him as well. Definitely, out of the supporting cast, he's notable. I think all the stuff between Kristen Scott Thomas and Fiennes is great. They had great chemistry, because I wanted to see their doomed romance to its conclusion. And when it's a romance, and that's the biggest part of the movie, you need to care about the people in the relationship, or the movie is gonna flame out. No pun intended to Almashi.
That laugh kind of feels like you, in fact, intended a pun.
No, but I realized it as I was saying it, and what's more charming than a guy laughing at his own jokes?
Laughing at horrible third-degree burns over a man's entire body.
Yep, to the point where he looked like a putty patrol.
Putty from Power Rangers.
Name, rank, serial number.
No, sorry. I think I was a pilot. I was found in the wreckage of a plane at the beginning of the war.
Can you remember where you were born?
Am I being interrogated? You should be trying to trick me. Make me speak German. Which I can, by the way.
Why? Are you German?
No.
How do you know you're not German if you don't remember anything?
Might I have a sip of water? Thank you.
It's okay.
I remember lots of things. I remember a garden, plunging down to the sea. Nothing between you and France.
This was your garden?
Or my wife's.
You were married then?
I think so. Although I believe that to be true of a number of Germans. I have this much lung. The rest of my organs are packing up. What could it possibly matter if I were Tutankhamun? I'm a bit of toast, my friend.
What's your biggest criticism for The English Patient?
There were definite hokey scenes. The special effects budget needed more money. Because it opens on Amacy and Catherine flying. You don't know who they are or anything. Backyard setup. They had this weird fake airplane, and they're doing it in front of a sheet that's supposed to look like the desert.
Yeah, and the camera's so close to the actors that it might as well just be a stage.
Yeah, the camera's so close to them, they're not acting. You can tell that they're just trying to make sure the wigs and props don't fall off.
They could have been sitting on a platform, and the cameras are just angled up, so all you see is blue behind them.
Yeah. I feel like I read somewhere that the movie ran out of money, which would make sense.
It would.
His makeup, right, looking like a putty from Power Rangers. When the character dies, he doesn't die, they just use a still shot. I don't know if you noticed that at the end.
Oh, I noticed, sir.
Okay, good, yeah. Wait, that's just a still shot. He's not even acting. I think he won an Oscar for this or something. I know he definitely got nominated. They didn't even let him act then. They just used a still shot. This is really disrespectful to this amazing man.
Besides the burns, I guess he must have had that untreated statue disease where your whole body locks up.
Oh, he's gonna get saved by Robin Williams eventually.
That's a great callback, folks, to a previous episode of The Screen Companion. Go check it out.
Right now.
Yeah, there's some issues with this movie. I would rework all the Nurse in Italy material into Amashi being a burn victim in a hospital in the closing weeks of the war. Just simplify it, because being in that villa was a little too extravagant for me. Keep Willem Dafoe's character. He's seeking his revenge on who he thinks was involved in him losing his thumbs to Jürgen Prochnow as a German.
Right, yeah.
The Das Boot captain.
Leader of the drinking team from Beerfest.
You love Beerfest.
It's not pro Beerfest. It's pro Jürgen. I'm just pro Jürgen. I like that guy.
And Jurgen was in Goldeneye too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. He's got a lot of range. He can play a German or a Russian.
He's perfect.
But the stuff with Caravaggio, set those scenes in a normal war hospital because that villa, yeah, it felt like something out of Amelie. But just imagine it. If you simplify it, then you could pull some stuff out of the movie, make it shorter, keep it more focused on the past instead of being more balanced between the two. Because I think most people would agree the past stuff is more engaging than the present stuff. Do you think so?
It is the meat of the story. I'll agree with that. But at the end of the day, it is a love story. You got to have that intrigue with Catherine, because at the beginning of the movie, they basically tell you she dies in the plane crash. You're not supposed to know who Ray Fiennes' character was.
And in my version, we'd still keep the present-day stuff, but cut out almost all the characters from the Italy segments, because if Juliette Binoche's subplot isn't as strong as the stuff with Ray Fiennes and Kristen Scott Thomas, then I think it's a better bet. It'll make more people happy versus keeping it balanced, because if you're not into the Italy stuff, then I just kind of have to sit through and wait for it. Oh, great, we're back to the past.
Finally.
Because they mirror some of the love story stuff. Hannah, the nurse, has her own little fling with the Indian guy.
Who saves her life.
The resolution to that, John, was that satisfying for you at all?
No. He just kind of drove off. He's just like, alright, I'm out of here.
Not that I needed them to be together, but it's almost like, what real revelation did we get through them going on that journey together? I don't think much, and certainly not enough that she should be in the movie as much as she is.
So you're saying it could be cut down. Alright. I did have a hard time keeping up with character names. Admittedly, yeah, right now I've got, obviously, the character names in front of me. I don't think I'd caught Colin Firth's name at any point during the movie. The Maddox reveal was hard, because I wasn't sure which one Maddox was in the flashbacks.
Is this attributable to your ADHD?
Possibly. That's why I was reluctant to bring it up, but screw it. Let's burn this movie to the ground.
I wish they had done more with Colin Firth's character, Catherine's husband. In the movie, he's just a sad sack who wants to do a murder-suicide by the end.
Borderline cuck, if you will.
Okay, so we cut out the Italy stuff, most of it, and then we take that time and give it to Colin Firth. In a romance where characters are having an affair, it's better if that third point of the love triangle, if we actually care at all about them. Like the whole time I wanted Al-Mashi and Catherine to just run away together.
Should have done it. They'd both be alive right now. Well, not currently. It was World War II, right?
And it also makes Catherine, as strong as she is and as smart as she is, it's almost like, well then, why is she interested in Colin Firth's character? Yeah, that's a contrived part of the story right there.
Was it an arranged marriage?
Whenever she talks about it, she felt sorry for the guy, and they used to be friends before they got married, and he just kept pecking at her until she gave in. So it's like, okay, if that's the backstory, why would you say no to Ray Fiennes? The guy is gorgeous. To carry forward random Bond talk, what do you think if Ray Fiennes had been Bond in the 90s?
I think there would have been an intensity there that people didn't want after Timothy Dalton. The playfulness of Pierce Brosnan, I think, is what helped save the franchise at that point.
That's a really good point. And also, in a way, I think Pierce Brosnan better embodies the 90s more than Fiennes.
True.
That boyish charm, not really much going on behind the eyes, but boy, is he a lot of fun.
You don't need anything else back there. As long as he adjusts his tie at the right time.
Do you have any final words about either of today's films?
I was just looking at other Oscar winners that the English Patient went up against. That's just a whole different rant that I won't go on right now.
Who do you think should have won Best Picture that year?
I'm looking at this, and I would have given it to either Fargo or Jerry Maguire over English Patient.
Picking The English Patient feels like the typical, oh, we're so smart, we're the Academy, we're gonna be all artsy-fartsy about this.
The fastest way to an Oscar is a period drama playing a real person.
I think it's one of those cases pretty much as factual as Fargo when it says based on a true story.
Oh, yeah. They got a general idea and then from there ran with it. I don't think Al-Mashid freeze-framed when he died.
Oh, and what do you think about the reason why Catherine dies is because Al-Mashid is a hothead? That's what it boils down to.
It did. He should have been half dead from the desert. He should have been like, please help, lady dying. Me too.
Yeah, his voice should have been much raspier.
For some reason, he comes in as the perfect English angry gentleman, starts yelling at people, and they're like, well, this beautiful English accent is clearly a German, let's lock him up.
And what's he doing walking around without any form of identification?
I don't know. I'm going to chalk that up to those are the times, even though they just fought a war against identification police, basically.
He definitely shows a kinship to the desert people. He's not as highbrow as his title of Count would suggest. So I get that he's not really into birth certificates or having his social security card on him. But still, when a war is about to break out and all these foreigners are around, come on, man, just carry something. He's got a lot of money, right?
He's a count. He's rich.
And yet he has to rely on his friend Maddox's largesse to leave him a biplane. He really does come off like a broke-ass fool. I guess he just put all his money into gallivanting and looking at cave walls.
That sounds like the life.
You've reached the end of this episode of The Screen Companion. Thank you for listening.